Hello, and welcome to our conference this afternoon. We're really lucky to have Isabelle Ducharme with us. She is the president of the board of directors of Kéroul. Kéroul is a nonprofit organization whose mission is to make tourism and cultural activities accessible to people with limited physical capacities. Welcome, Mrs.
Thank you very
Ducharme.
much. I'm so happy to be with you today. Tourism, culture, activities is really a big passion of mine for the longest time. So I'm not a person with, I am a person with a spinal cord injury. So I understand very well what are the needs of people with disabilities when they travel. So the difference between traveling when you don't have a disability and traveling when you do have a disability, because I did travel with my family, but also on my own until the age of 22 when I had the accident. So I'm going to share my screen now, and we're going to start the conference. And I'm going to tell you just a little bit more about myself when we get to the little pictures that I will share of who I am. So today we're going to be talking about accessibility in the province of Quebec because we are uh, mid-April, end of April. We're going to talk about activities that we can do during the summertime. I will be more than happy to do another conference, maybe in the fall, with activities that we can do that are more inside. We will then touch a little bit about, I know that you might be planning to travel either this summer or in the next year, and you're thinking, where am I going to go? I want to go outside of Quebec. Well, then I'm going to give you a few tips on what you should do for your planning and the destinations you might choose and what happens when you take the plane. And I'm going to finish this with a whole bunch of tools that can help you planning your activities. So let's see if the PowerPoint will work. And it does. As you can see, this is me. I have changed hair color every 6 months. So you won't see too many pictures of me with the same length or the same color of hair. Isabelle Ducharme, I am the president of the board of Kéroul. I am also a person that is very involved with the social integration of people with disabilities in general. I am on the boards of different organizations, including Dawn, an organization, a Canadian organization, fighting for the rights of women with disabilities, and involved in many other organizations, including spinal cord injury, since I am a person with a spinal cord injury, but also a lot to do with transportation, which is a big issue in many ways, especially if you live in Montreal. You know that the subway stations, there's maybe not even a quarter of them that are accessible up to now. So I am a person that used to travel and do camping activities, so outdoor activities, inside activities, and since a young age, and that hasn't changed. Actually, that was a very strong motivation for me when I had my car accident, to know that I could still do tourism and culture activities. I could still take the plane and go and visit other countries. As you can see, through the years, I have done activities. I wanted to share a few of them, of the most memorable activities that I did. So the top picture is of me in the Yucatan area in Mexico, and we are at the Chichen Itza pyramids. And the two people that you see with me is two local people with disabilities that I invited on the tour because I asked if there were any local people that maybe didn't have the money to go and travel around and visit their own areas that everybody wanted to visit. So they spent the day with me. We got a chance to chat about their realities and my reality, and it was a lot of fun. And that is all thanks to Cancun Accessible, which is a company that is based in Cancun, but can do the whole Yucatan area. And they can take you on a trip. They can take you from the airport to your hotel, or they can do a tour like we did that day. And they also have all the equipment that you might need for rental, like for your lift to get in and out of bed, or a shower chair and things like that. There are a few companies like that in around the world. And any information I am giving you today, you can find in Kéroul's website that I will be sharing at the end. And you can also find us very easily on the web if you Google Kéroul, Keroul. Um, the other picture at the bottom is where when I went to do a conference in Hong Kong. And the two people that you see next to me are people from this, one is from the States and the other one is from Switzerland. And they attended the same conference I did in Hong Kong. And then we went on a short 4-day trip to the Beijing area. So what you see here is us being able to touch the wall, the Great Wall of China. Luckily, although because of its shape, it's not possible for somebody with a disability or with a mobility aid to actually be walking around or going along with the visitors on the wall. We could at least touch part of the wall where they put accessibility for people in wheelchair. There's an elevator and a ramp for people that want to actually go up and at least see the view. So surprisingly, in Hong Kong, I was able to use the subway and the regular bus system. So that was very interesting to find out. Hong Kong is definitely more modernized than the rest of China, but still, it was good to see that we could do some of these activities. And finally, the picture on the left is me in Barcelona, one of my favorite destinations for beach activities, because just like I found out later on in Portugal, they have reserved areas at the beach where there is volunteers during the day to help you transfer into chairs that do go and float on the water. So it's not just having the equipment, but it's also having the people on ground, and you don't need to reserve. You just show up, and you will be the next in line if there is somebody before you that is using the wheelchair. And they, even the one that was in Barcelona, there was even a lift to help you get in out of your chair and into the beach chair. So it was very, and having the wonderful city of Barcelona that has so much to offer. But just the fact of being able to take the subway, get out of the subway and be right at the beach, that was quite an amazing and different activity. So just some of the activities, just to show you there's a lot that we maybe didn't think we could do, but that we can do even when we have a disability and we get around with a mobility aid. So in the introduction, it was already mentioned what our mission is. We also like to mention that we work with the Ministry of Tourism now for more than 25 years. The organization Kéroul has been working since 1979. It was founded by André Leclerc. He worked for 40 years to make sure that Quebec becomes an accessible destination. I was born with cerebral paralysis, and very quickly in his late teens, early 20s, when he wanted to get around the province, he realized back then in 1979 that it was very difficult to have accessible transportation, accessible accommodation, but also very difficult to get the around and not be judged as oh, you're a person with a disability, you're not able to think for yourself. And so that's why he started Kéroul, not only to evaluate and give accessibility information about activities and transportation, but also to make sure that people in the travel industry have more have training to understand that people with disabilities, they come in all shapes and sizes and all realities, from poor to rich to happy to sad, and so they're just humans like everybody else. And yes, they do, some of them do study, work, and so just to make sure that people understand that we just need sometimes to adapt the way we present things, but that we are people like everybody else, and we do want to have access to activities. And we are doing all of this in a sustainable development world. So we also remind the industry that in the sustainability reflection, you also have to think of not only the environment, but also the access or the accessibility prong, which includes the social inclusion of people with disabilities. So what are our main attractions that we think that are well adapted, and that maybe not all of them are not really well known by the public, and that could be of interest to you. As I said, we're going to talk more about outdoor activities because we're just in the spring preparing for summer. So the first one is in the Outaouais region, so not too far from Ottawa. If you ever wanted to combine activities, Ottawa has a lot to offer. But if we stay in the province of Quebec, just outside, just close to Ottawa, you have la région de l'Outaouais and the Gatineau Park. What is interesting here is that you could be staying in the city of Gatineau, and there would be a bus that would take you straight to the park. And that park has a lot of trails that are well put together so that you can get around and in a wheelchair or with a walker, or if you're a slow walker, and you can take your time. There's places to sit. There's so it's a nice environment where you can feel free to roam. If you are a person that has that doesn't usually use a mobility aid, and or you use a cane or a walker, and you would like to just enjoy and not be tired while you are doing the activity, there is a possibility to rent one of those wheelchairs that are have the big wheels and are steadier than any regular wheelchair, and you will be pushed around during the activity, so you can enjoy it and not worry about falling or anything like that. And in that same area, you do have those little yurts that are there's a few of them, and there's one that is accessible. As you can see, they have put a ramp in there, and to make sure that it's not too steep. That's why it's you see it's not just one straight ramp, so that it's very well done and to the right standards. There's also an entrance that is um, with a doorway larger, and no step in the front, and so you have everything that you need to for a basic lodging, but an interesting one that is different probably than what you are used to. One of my favorites, I love to go to Parc National d'Oka, which is just a little, maybe 30 to 40 minutes north of Montreal. So this is an area, it's part of La CEPAC, which is the provincial parks, and they are very good in becoming more and more accessible every year. They have a good accessibility to begin with, but every year they would look at their accessibility plan and see what they did and what they still need to do or what they could do to improve. You see on the right, there's a nice beach, and you can borrow this hippocamp wheelchair, where you can at least get around in the sand and not sink in. So this wheelchair will help you not float in the water like the ones I was talking before, but at least be on the beach with your friends, family, and enjoy. They also have a lot of activities that you can either join or ask for if you're a group, you're coming with a group. And there, these activities can be to learn about the animals or the vegetation in the area, but they could also be activities of um, fine arts and crafts and things like that. So that's something to keep in mind because it's a nice place that you could also decide to go for, let's say, a weekend. And if you did, you can either pitch your own tent or you can rent one of those tents on the left side. It's a ready to camp tent. So it's installed there. I look at it a bit as um, a tent that is like a scout tent where you have everything that you need inside, a little fridge, a little stove, the kitchen table and everything, and of course the place where you can sleep. They have a few that they have adapted. These tents are present in all the provincial in most of the provincial parks, and just a few like Oka have one that is adapted for people in wheelchair. They always make sure they're next to an accessible building where you can have your shower and go to the bathroom and things like that. And it's all set up so that it's larger and easier to use by people in wheelchair or with mobility aids. There's also the adaptive picnic table where there is an extension at the end of the picnic table to make sure that the person can go up to the table and sit with the family instead of if there's no extension picnic table, we all people that can cross over can sit and be at the table. But if you can't, you're stuck maybe with the putting something on your lap so that you can eat with everybody else, but you're a bit further and you don't really hear well what they're saying. So at least with the extension, you are really with the family and friends. In the middle here, you see what they call a compact cottage, and that is also something that you can rent. It's basic. It's got everything you need, but in a basic way. Again, it has like the little fridge and the little stove and everything. And again, next to a building where you can have your shower and stuff like that. So it's something to keep in mind if you enjoy the outdoors. You don't want to be in a hotel, but at the same time, you don't want to be with a tent that you have to put up yourself and things like that. And you can go just for the day. It's very enjoyable with the boardwalk by the lake if you don't want to be on the beach and stuff. So it's really a nice place to go. In the Laurentians, there's a Sentier des Cimes. It's as you can see, like a big tower that goes really high and that has a wonderful view. There is when you want to go and buy your tickets, there's a bit of an issue. It's really a bit of a steep ramp, but there is an elevator for those that can't go or up that steep ramp on themselves by themselves. But then once you get to the tower, as you can see on the picture on the left, it's they made sure that it's not too steep uh, um, a ramp when you go up so that you can just walk with everybody else, whether you have a mobility aid or not. We're all going through the same route, and we get the wonderful view that we see further and further from as long when we go along. And if you look well on on the picture on the left, just behind the people that walk, we can see that there is a green sign and a little look over point. So when there's a few of them as you go along, so that when you need to rest, because either you want to learn a little bit more about the area, or just uh, look, or just rest your legs or take a breather or whatever. There's those spots are spread over the tower so that you can enjoy it, because as you can see on the picture on the right, it's pretty high, and it's a long way to go, but it's a wonderful view once you get to the top. In Lanaudière, just a little bit north of Montreal, there's a Parc Régional des Chutes Montapenne et des Dalles. One day I keep saying I have to go and see why they call it that way, because it's a very complicated name. But it's a very nice place, a very simple place in the way that you have access to, again, very different, a whole bunch of trails that are easy, with easy access for somebody with a mobility aid, or as a slow walker. There's wonderful views with water, and there's also the possibility of renting or borrowing the joëlette, which is the little device that you see in the picture in the center. And it's basically you're transferring into a seat, and there's a one big wheel under you, and needs to be somebody behind you and somebody in front of you. And with this device, you can go places that you couldn't if you're using a walker, a cane, or a wheelchair, or if you just have a bit of a loss of balance when it's not a steady ground. So that's a very useful device to go places that you couldn't go otherwise. Um, and bivouac, I will remind you at the end of the presentation of the different places that we can go, is a very good organization that can help you when you want to do such activities. And there's also a camping side to the park. And they, as you can see on the right, they have a water area where kids and grown-ups can go, whether they have a disability or not, and refresh themselves during the summer. In the Montérégie area, where now we're more on the lower suburbs on the south side of Montreal, there is l'Île Saint-Bernard, which is, for me, another area that I enjoy very much, because when I was a teenager, that's where the area where we lived. It's not too far from Chateauguay, for those of you who know where Chateauguay is. And very peaceful island area. And as you can see on the left there, they even have one of those little swings that we can usually enjoy as a couple, and that is not very accessible usually. And this time they thought of putting a ramp so that we can at least still be together and enjoy a little lunch or something, and be in a comfortable setting. And as you can see on the right, there's also in that same area Camping Choisy, where you can pitch your tent and you can enjoy the area with there. This is one of those picnic tables I was talking about with the extension. Unfortunately, from this view, we don't really see it well. So I'll make sure next time that I change the picture to it so that you can see it better. But it's the kind of picnic table I was talking about before. So as you can see, if it's not possible for you to transfer on the seat, then you're going to be further away from everybody. But because of the extension, you can all be sitting together. So it's very another nice area. In the same area, le Parc National des Îles de Boucherville, we hear about this park very often, thinking that it's just a park like any other, but it's got a lot of trails that are well prepared for people with different types of mobility. There is also a lot of observation of birds, and so it's very, it's worth going to look at it and seeing the activities that you can do in that area, because there's definitely a lot to be said about this area, and a lot of activities that can be done. Some of them on your own, and some of them with the guide that they give you of everything that can be done in that area. Eastern Townships is an area that is has been working for a long time on making sure they have more and more accessible activities. Um, I particularly know more about the Magog area, where I enjoy when I go to, if I know I'm going, I'm usually going for more than one day. So the Chalet U, their cottages, they started with one, but now they have two. And the U is for universal accessibility. And they are luxury cottages that you can rent for the weekend or for a week. And keep in mind that sometimes we find that maybe renting a cottage is a bit more expensive than going to a hotel when you look at it on paper. But when you think about it, if you're renting a cottage, usually you will be eating on ground, and you can share. If there's more than one of you, you will be sharing the cost of the cottage. These cottages have 3 rooms. They have a hot tub and everything, so it's a really nice way of staying in the same area and visiting more than one thing. Of course, this is not too far from Granby if you want to go to the zoo, but it's also where you can be going on the left here, the picture that you see. It's actually La Rivière des Marais aux Cerises, and it's an area where you can be. There's a nice long trails. The one that you see there, you're looking, there's a long walk over the water area, where you can also have information about local local animals and local flowers and stuff. And there is a nice building at the entrance where you can have information and you can ask for a guided tour. You can also go on your own, of course. And there's an area with picnic tables. There's areas for if you have a dog with you. There's also some spots where the dogs can um, um, get some refreshments. And there's even an area, especially for people with mobility aids, that would be electrical, and you can plug it in if you need to recharge at one point. That's one of the few areas where we've seen that. In that same area, you have the Parc National de la Yamaska. Yamaska is a nice area with lots of water, and there is in the park the possibility to rent a tandem bike, like you can see in the middle picture, where you can transfer or you can sit in that seat, and that way you don't have to walk, you don't have to push your wheelchair. There is also the possibility of renting one where you will be staying in your wheelchair, and there will be an area for your wheelchair to be, you roll up with your wheelchair, and then you're being pushed by the person that is uh, riding the bike. And finally, there is that nice little area in Mont where you can you can try again a new type of lodging, which is a teepee type. So what we are used to seeing for the way of lodging themselves in uh, the early years here in Canada. Still in the Eastern Townships, here's another type of lodging that you could try, which is, again, there is more than one in the Frontenac Park, but they adapted one with a nice little ramp. Again, as you can see, it's sort of an L shape, just so that it's not too steep of a ramp. and you will have everything that you need inside to be functional. In that area of the townships, obviously there are also other parks where you can do the camping, and there will be adaptations like the water park, the water area that you can see here in the middle. And they always make sure that whether it's the first lodge, whatever type of lodging that they mention that is accessible, or the accessible area to pitch your tent and stuff, it's always next to one of those buildings where you can have your shower, go to the bathroom and stuff, and still be comfortable in the sense that it's wider than the usual, and it's in a more accessible way. If we move to the Quebec City region, there is a lot of things to do again. One of my favorite places to stay is the Wendake area, and there's the First Nation Hotel, where you can learn more about the different um, realities of the Aboriginal um, um, nations. And they there's a lot of activities just to do even around the hotel that includes a museum, but also storytelling and then things like that. And while you're staying at the hotel, you could be going out to Canyon Saint Anne or Parc de la Chute de Montmorency, where you can oversee the waterfalls. You can do it by going over on the bridge. If you're get a bit scared if when a bridge moves a little bit because people walk on it, you could also be looking at one of the viewpoints like the guy that we see on the left there. So whichever way you enjoy the view or being around water, if you do like me, these are all good ways of either feeling like you're part of it because you're on the bridge over the water, or just looking at it from the viewpoint. So there's definitely good things to do in different ways, in the ways that you enjoy the most. Also, there is the possibility, there's like a little golf cart that you could be using. They could be driving you to from the entrance to the waterfalls area if you're a slow walker, if uh, you are using a mobility aid and are not able to go up the hill or to walk too long. They have that option as well. So that's interesting to know. Now, if we go a bit north from Quebec City, we go to Saguenay-Lac-Saint-Jean. You have Rivière-à-Mars, which is an area, again, to learn more about that area with the trees and the flowers and the animals in the area. So you will, as you can see, you have all these panels there that can give you information about the area. But what is also interesting for this area is that if you are one that enjoys fishing, going out to areas where people go up north could be a bit more difficult, especially because of the long drive, but also because the accessibility could be is not as widespread in those further areas. So one option, if you want to go and you enjoy fishing, but you're not want to you're not stable enough, or you're not comfortable enough to go into a canoe or a boat or something like that, here is an area where you can go up and go up the ramp and still be able to fish. As you can see, it's very safely rounded by a fence, but in the front area, the fence is lowered so that you can go in and fish and be comfortable and safe in the way of doing it. And the Centre de Plein Air that you see on the right, we're just showing how they made sure that the entrance was accessible. So once you get there, you can ask about all the activities. Some of them could be guided, some of them could be done on your own again. So it's just to show that in all areas, there are always activities that can be done on your own or accompanied by other people. So that was the main things I wanted, some of the ideas of what I wanted to show you about what can be done around the province of Quebec. So as you can see, we've only shown a few areas, but when you go on our website that I will share a little bit later on, you can find out about any regions that you want to go to. You can find out what type of accessibility is in that area, and you will see that most areas in the province of Quebec have something to offer that could respond to your needs and your wishes to do activities. And we know that summer is too short for some of us, but might as well enjoy it with all the activities that are available in the province here. So if you want to do some activities and you're not sure how to do them, or you'd like to do them with other people, and or be accompanied by people to make sure that you do it safely, the Adapted Sports Foundation is definitely one place to go. They do activities mostly in the spring and summer, so you can do paracycling, water skiing, stand-up paddle boarding. For those of you who might not know what that is, it's sort of like a surfboard, but that you can stand on and you can paddle your way. But that same paddleboard is now adapted to also take sometimes people that stay in their own wheelchair. And they also have, if you're not, if it's more difficult for you to stand up, some people even do it uh, kneeling down or sitting on the paddle board. And there's also the possibility of going with somebody else that would be standing behind you and paddling for you if that's not something that is possible for you. The Dao is a little bit like the one I showed you before, the Joëlette with the one wheel and having somebody else um, drive you to around the areas that you wouldn't be able to go if you have a mobility aid. And they also have a whole bunch of activities that you can try out and see if that's something that you want to get into, like horseback riding, like zip lining and rock climbing. They can also adapt an activity. Let's say you're decided that you want to try skydiving, you want to anything that you're feeling you want to try or you want to be accompanied in doing. You can definitely reach out to them and see if they've ever done it, if they would do it with you, if they would we be willing to try a new thing. They're very open. They really want to make sure that people can do the activities they want to do. There are also um, areas and organizations that can do the loan of equipment. The city of Victoriaville is known for accessibility in general, but part of what they do is also rent some adapted bicycles, like the one that you see here is just a regular tandem bike. But there is also the bikes like I showed you before, where you could be sitting in the front while the other person is pedaling, and other types of equipment. Centre d'intégration à la vie active is present in different areas and can rent some adapted sport equipment and outdoor equipment, including camping equipment. Accessible is Accessible. It's another organization that rents mostly different types of bikes, but also adapted kayaks. So just so you know, canoes and kayaks can be adapted, and so that they are more stable and you don't worry about what happens if it tips over. And finally, Zone Loisirs Montérégie, that we know better for the card that they have prepared in the past for people that need to be accompanied in activities, and don't we don't want to penalize them because they need to be accompanied by somebody else who the companion is free. They also do some equipment rental, including camping equipment. So that could be of interest to you if you want to do an activity but don't want to buy an adapted bicycle, or you don't want to buy an adapted canoe and things like that. Um, Bivouac is an organization that is doing activities. Usually they do some day, just one day activity or try out activity for their equipments, including the joelette that I showed you before. But if you do go out with them on a 2, 3, 4 days, I think they even do a 1 week trip. What they do is they make sure that there's never more than 30% of the participants that are people with disabilities. So that means that 70% of the people that are part of the group are there to help the people that have disabilities. So there's always like 2 to 3 people that are there that could help the one person that needs it. So if you need to be carried from one point to another because there is a rock in the middle, or because there is a tree that fell over the trail, or if you want to go in an area that is not um good for your wheelchair, well, they will transfer you to that one wheelchair that can go into any area. So that they're very they've been active now for a couple of years, and they're doing it very safely and very in a very enjoyable way. Um, One thing I haven't mentioned, I think, yet is there is also the possibility to do sailing in the province of Quebec, for sure in Montreal and in the Magog area. But um, the the foundation of this organization was in Montreal by René Dallaire, that is a paraplegic, a quadriplegic, and is not able to move his four limbs. So he directs his sailing boat by sip and puff. So that just goes to show you that no matter your disability, all things are possible. The sailing can be done either by having somebody direct the sail for you, or you can also learn how to direct with whatever abilities that you have. They even have the lift to transfer you from your wheelchair to the boat if needed. So it's very good thing to know, and it's I only have the acronyms in French, but it's the AQVA. And if you go on their website, you can be directed to the English side if needed. So I mentioned in the beginning that I would give you some information about the international traveling. So now that I still think that you should do activities in the province of Quebec if you can. Let them know that we are here. And it's also a good way for you, if you haven't done any activities with your new reality, to see what you like and don't like, and then go to the international section. So when you decide to go to the either Canada or international, there's things you need to think about. So the first part is more about the air and ground transportation. So keep in mind that it's not just which aircraft, which airline am I going to take, but it's also once I get to my destination, will there be accessible ground transportation? A lot of people from around the world come to Montreal and think that because we have a subway station, a subway system, that the subway system is fully accessible, and they get a big surprise, and then they have to change their plans and find other ways of transportation. So it's the same thing for when you go outside. make sure that if they say there is a public transportation, there is a subway, there are taxis, make sure there are accessible to your needs. If you are not too sure where you want to go for your first destination, you just know you want to get out of the country and visit another country, discover another um, um, language, or well, make sure the first thing you could think of is going to a destination where there were the Olympics in the past, because then if there were the Olympics, there had to be Paralympics. So they had to make sure that the area was accessible. So regions like Barcelona, like London, like Atlanta, wherever there were Olympics is a good idea. uh, if you go to the States, which is closer to us, maybe than going to Europe and overseas, the States are well known for their accessibility because of the accessibility, the ADA. Destinations like Vegas and um, um, Disneyland or Disney World are very good destinations because you have no hassles, no problems. They are used to catering to the needs of people with disabilities. Once you decide that you're going to a destination that is outside of Quebec, it's always a good idea to use the services of a travel agent. They will be looking for the information for you, but there will also be the ones that can help you if you have an issue at destination. And keep in mind that the travel agent is not necessarily one that knows everything about accessibility, especially at destination. So it would always be a good idea to see and write down the name of a local organization of your destination. That would be an organization that is used to um, giving services to people with disabilities. It could be just general, or it could be related to your specific um, um, situation. Also, keep in mind that some destinations still ask for a visa, some paperwork that you need before you can go to that country, like China, like Vietnam, and places like that. So you can't do a last minute trip, or sometimes it takes 6 months, 9 months, and even for us to get our passports, there's been some big issues in the near past. So it's always better to ask ahead of time what is needed for paperwork for your destination that you want to go. Make sure that your passport is good for at least 6 months minimum after your date of departure. Some countries won't accept you if your passport is only good for 3 months after your dates of departure. And also, some destination you have to have vaccines before you go. So that's another thing to think about. When I wanted to go to um, Equator, there were some vaccines that I needed to start almost a year before my departure. So another thing to check before you decide to go to a country. A lot of people ask me, but what happens when you take a flight? How does it work? What do you do with your wheelchair? Do you stay in your wheelchair? Well, definitely that is not an option. Any type of wheelchair that you use will have to be stored in the baggage compartment at at the bottom of the luggage. So for that reason, any type of special need that you have, whether it be because you need to take more medication, you need to take your mobility aid with you, whether it be a wheelchair, a walker, anything that needs to be stored away, you should mention right away when you book a flight. So either to your travel agent and or to the airline company, because they will definitely be asking questions about what is it that you're bringing with you, what kind of help do you need getting on the flight, and also there might be some medical forms to be filled out. So if you know that you have special needs, if I were you, the next time you see your doctor, bring the paperwork for the main Canadian Airlines, just because if you don't know yet which one you're going to use, but you know that you're going to be wanting to travel, each airline company has their own forms to be filled out by your doctor. And then it's going to be approved by their medical department. So it can take a while. So it's a good idea to have it filled out. And then when you need it, it's going to be already, because we all know how difficult sometimes it can be to have an appointment with our doctor. And also, it's good for 5 years, just so you know, you don't have to do it every time you go and start traveling. And it's the same reality for VRL. If you want to, if you have special needs, it's the same thing. They have their own form. Um, when you do take a flight, you can decide on your own if you want to go with a direct flight or with stopovers. It really something to keep in mind regarding your situation. I prefer to go with a straight flight just because I don't want to transfer in and out of my wheelchair and into that small wheelchair that you see that helps you go through your seat to your seat. But other people, because they know that they can't hold they need to go to the washroom more often, they prefer to do the stopover because in the plane it's more complicated, but at the airport it's usually easier. So at least they can go to the washroom when they do the stopover. And keep in mind that if money is something that you're is an issue for you, if you travel inside Canada, any Canadian airline that you travel with in the province of Canada has to offer the one person one fare. So it's the same thing with VRL. If you need to be accompanied by somebody when you travel, then there's no extra charge for the person that travels with you, as long as it is a Canadian airline and inside Canada. Now, Air Canada and the other airlines could also decide to offer some discount in some areas that you would be going to outside of Canada, but that is really to their own discretion. So the only obligation that they have is inside of Canada. So make sure wherever you go, whether it be inside Canada or outside Canada, that you mention right away that you are a person with a disability, that you will be traveling with somebody, and that you want to know what are the fares when in accordance with this reality. And last thing, a lot of people wonder, maybe I can't travel because I am already have a lot of it's already expensive to travel, and we know about everything that the airlines don't offer anymore because they like everybody in the travel industry have suffered from the 3 years that people didn't travel. So we get less and less and we pay more and more, but they can't charge you for extra luggage. So if you're worried about having to pay for the extra luggage that you bring because you're traveling with diapers, you're traveling with insulin, you're traveling with anything or an extra with the bench that you use to go in the bathroom and stuff like that, they can't charge you for any extra luggage, any extra equipment that you bring that is linked to your medical situation. So that could also be something maybe that might help you feel like it is possible to travel. In the international way of traveling, the cruise is probably the safest way of doing it. It's probably the easiest way of doing it. If you are a bit worried about, well, what happens if I get sick? What happens if they don't understand me because I don't speak the language? Whatever if you're a bit nervous about traveling, cruise is definitely a safe way of doing it. There is medical service on board. Most cruise lines have multilingual talking people. They could most of them will be able to give you a menu or information in your own language. So even if you're going, let's say, to a cruise that would leave from New York or Miami and going down to the Caribbeans and different Mexico and different places, you will still be able to know that you sleep in the safe area, in the safe environment, that you have the medical system around, and that you're not worried about getting sick from the food or from the water, depending on where you go. So it's a good way of traveling. It's a safe way, and it's also very accessible. They get a lot of groups of seniors, so they have to become more accessible. Also, just a little warning: if you do reserve a cruise, most of the times they will say there is a transportation included from the airport to the cruise ship. Keep in mind that that transportation usually is not an accessible one. So if you can't go up the few steps for the bus, a regular bus, then you will mention that to the either the cruise line or the travel agent, and then they will see if it can be included to have an accessible taxi or an accessible transportation available. They might tell you that it's going to be a small extra cost because it is not part of um, the price that was put for everybody, but it's really at their discretion again. And the last thing to make sure that you are informed of is some of those cruise ships stop in areas where you need to transfer into a smaller ship to get to the ground. So if you want to be sure that you can have access to if the stops where they are gonna go and visit, then just make sure that you ask for a um, a route where there would be stops only and where there's docks. So that way, even if you have a mobility aid, you will not be worried about um, being able to access. And you also have the option. Some people prefer to never go out off the ship because they enjoy just being floating around, and the ship itself usually have a lot of activities, casinos, pools, anything. Some of them have ice rinks, and you can choose in accordance to what you like to do. It can be quiet cruise, it can be a fun cruise. Really, there's many options. So what are some of we're gonna finish with some of the helpful resources to help you. The first one is we have on our website, the Kéroul, Keroul .qc.ca. We have a section that is called Services for Travelers. And in that section, we have a lot of information about, let's say you need to travel and you want to know if there is a companion service that is available. You need to rent equipment. You need information about international travel. We have all of that in that section, and it includes also the travel agents that we gave training to, and that will be better equipped to help you with your travel. On that same website, we have uh, the possibility to search for what is accessible in the province of Quebec. So you can go with, I need to know only about the hotels that have a roll-in shower that I can go in with my wheelchair, or I need a bathtub, or I need two beds, one bed. I need room under the bed for the lift to get me in and out of bed. So you can do research either by areas, by towns and cities. So it's really like a good tool to find out about general information about accessibility. If you want to have more information about the different areas, touristic areas of the province of Quebec, about I want to look just for cultural activities. I want to have make my own itinerary and print it. Or you can also go through our suggested areas of suggested itineraries. So it's available both in French and in English when you go on the website. And as you can see, there's always a little introduction about the different touristic regions, and then also videos sometimes of the activities, and you can see on the map there it will different colors for whether it be a lodging, a restaurant, or a rest area and things like that. So it's very full of information, and I find it's a very a nice website where we can have a lot of pictures, a lot of videos. We have blogs also. One is directly on the Quebec for All, and the other one is Voyage Accessible. The Quebec for All blog, obviously, the stories for now are in French, but eventually everything will be translated, and everything will be on one website. For now, there's a couple of websites that you have to go through, but all of them are linked through a link that you find on the website. So you don't have to worry about having difficulty finding the information. But eventually it's going to be even easier just the one on the one website to have everything. In the case that you are interested and that you do speak French, we have a quarterly magazine that comes out every 3 months, and it gives you information about what Kéroul does and what is newly available here and in other areas around the world that we find interesting and that could be useful to you. In the middle, the Quebec for All is also a magazine that comes out once a year. This one is available both in French and in English, and you have information about what is accessible and what is new in the Quebec for All website. And finally, the Voyageurs sur route is a French documentation that we will eventually be translating. And it's really on how to prepare for a travel, how to not forget any part of a travel journey, and make sure that you checked all the points before you leave and go on your journey. So as the founder of Kéroul once said, if we can send people to the moon, we can certainly demand a world accessible for all. But to do that, we definitely have to show that we want to do things. We are present. We are people with disabilities, but we want to do activities. So just make sure that not only you plan activities outside of province of Quebec, but mostly that you do show that you are present, even in your own area, going to your local library, going to your local venues, festivals, and show that people with disabilities do enjoy activities. And that way people will want to become more and more accessible because they will see there is a need. So these are the information on how to reach us. If you want information and you like to go on the web and find information on your own, there is our websites. And if you prefer to talk to somebody directly, regular work hours during the week, there is somebody to answer your questions at the phone number on the screen, 514-252-3104. And if you have questions, but don't want to don't think that you should or you don't want to think about it during work hours, you can always go to our write an email to, and we will be more than happy to send you information about it. All right, to about whatever question that you have. So I'm going to stop my screen right now, and I see that there is one question here in the chat box. So just that you know, so that you know, there's always a lot of questions about, well, what about insurance? Well, it's not because you're a person with disability that you can't have insurance anymore. you should at least have the basic insurance that everybody uses, the insurance for luggage and a flight cancellation and things like that. That doesn't matter what you have a disability or not. If you have a disability, then there's not one travel insurance that is better than another. It's really a case by case. Mostly what they ask is to have a stable situation. In some cases, it's 3 months before you leave. In other cases, it's 6 months before you leave. And that could be regarding your medication, that you haven't had a change in medication in the past 3 or 6 months. It could be a new diagnosis in the past 3 or 6 months. But if you have an evolutive situation, like you most likely have if you're watching this video, then it really depends on how close you are to when the diagnosis was done. And there might be some exclusion to what will be covered by the insurance, but really I can't recommend one more than another. It's really a case by case situation. But just know that it's not because one travel insurance company said no, that every travel insurance company will say no. If one says no, just try another one. There's information about that in the document that I talked about, the Voyageur sur Roue. But you could also call the office for some help if you want to know more names of travel insurance companies. I think that's
Thank,
it for me.
thank you very much, Isabel. That was very, very informative. I always learn things from you when I participate in your conferences. I wish to thank you very much for your time with us today, and I wish you safe travels for your summer vacation. I'm hoping that you're getting.
Well, thank you. And I really hope that we gave new hopes or new dreams to people that maybe didn't think it was possible anymore to travel.
Thank you very much.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.